Alright, I wanted to make a quick update to my last video that I posted. We are now live with the Threadripper out of the equation. So, again, it took about 3 days to get it swapped over, and that's significantly longer than it should have taken, but there were a couple of things that I was fighting against that I didn't fully understand or realize. My root thought was in some ways correct, that the RAID drives were causing the issue, but it turned out that it seems to be the driver that Gigabyte was pushing down may have been the root cause of the issue. I broke the RAID array and removed that driver from the equation, and everything is up and working. And one of the things that I really wanted to do with this was to create a delineation. It is one of those things where you want to not port over all of the drivers and files and registry and everything else that comes with a Windows installation. So my goal here was to do a clean install. Technically, I was able to boot off of the original volume, but that's not what I wanted to do. I really, really wanted a complete clean install on this system so that I wouldn't have any of the weird bugs or issues that come with trying to just nurse the system along forever. So, with that said, I have gotten the vast majority of what I've been trying to do set up. It's still very weird to me. Sorry, as a program just pops up in front of me. To go from a 32-core system to a 16-core system, to go from 128 gigs of RAM to 64 gigs of RAM, it feels like a regression, but when you actually look at what I'm doing and what I'm, needing the most of, I've made a significant improvement, and that is in clock speed. So the Threadripper maxed out at 4.2. Every so often you'd see 4.2 and some slight change, but for all intents and purposes, 4.2 was its max. And then the new system can touch 5.8. It's a huge improvement in that regard. And then the RAM speed is an improvement. Well, it depends on the way you look at it. I mean, the RAM speed is nearly double the speed, but the bandwidth is cut in half because I'm using dual channel rather than quad channel. So, again, nothing major there. I did pick up during this move PCIe 5.0 capabilities, but that doesn't really do anything for me right now. I don't have any PCIe 5.0 devices. That'll probably be next generation. It is, theoretical that I could use some SSDs that would be PCIe 5.0, but nobody's making capacity drives that I'm looking for. So they've got some 1 terabytes and stuff like that, but I use a vast amount of data, and so I need that density and the speed. So until somebody comes up with both, I'll continue to rock the PCIe 4.0 drives. And honestly, there's not a huge amount of difference in between the two. Yes, your raw throughput is higher, but when it comes right down to it, the system is bound by other your 4K random reads and writes and those types of things that don't really improve. Your mass sequential read and writes are pretty rare in these day and age. So But yeah, so got most everything set up. Still got the Maple Ridge cards, plugged it in, and so I tried to get this card to work on the Gigabyte board, on the Threadripper board, and ended up finding that the BIOS was just incompatible with it. Threw it into a box and then brought it back out for this build, and the BIOS shows up correctly for the card, but when I go into Windows, I'm getting a voltage error. So my only assumption is I've got a bad card. I don't see any physical problems with the card, but again, it's showing a voltage problem. So I picked up another one. They're relatively cheap nowadays. They were very expensive when I bought the original one. But yeah, the thought process is this is a PCIe 4X lane, and the board that I got is kind of unique in the fact that it splits out the lanes in a more logical fashion. So it assigns the lanes that this guy uses from the chipset rather than from the CPU. And so what that means is that I can still have my 16X GPU in there and not lose any bandwidth on it. So a lot of boards you'll see sacrifice greatly on the they'll immediately shunt the main GPU down to an 8X lane, which doesn't make any sense at all to me. So anyway, other than that, got the MikroTik switch up and running. Still got some more discovery to do on that one, to really figure things out. I just haven't put the time and effort into it to really get it rocking and rolling. I've done some very small tweaks and changes to it, and it's running, but it's not where it needs to be just for optimal use cases. And then, yeah, the vast majority of what we're doing right now is all running and working very well. The downside to doing a clean install means that I've got to go through and pull a whole bunch of programs and stuff down. So that will take a good amount of time as I go through, and some things I don't use very often, so I have to remember that I even have that particular program and pull it down. You know, if you were really doing this correctly, you would create a list beforehand and be like, okay, here's every program that I'm going to need, and, you know, build it out. But to me, it's a good time to prune things, and anything that I don't use very frequently, just pull that out and get rid of it. And, you know, it's a good time to wipe hard drives and those types of things, and just do general cleanup on everything. So lots of garbage collection being done right now. And I will say it was very nice to be able to take all of my data, and I created a folder on the server that said data dump, and just moved every last scrap of data over to it. And then when I'm done, I can do whatever I want to with it. If I don't need it, I just delete it, you know, etc. So it's nice to have that much capacity to where I can move 20 terabytes worth of information around and it doesn't matter. So yeah, really, really pleased with that. But yeah, and everything else is moving along quite nicely. Not experienced any major hiccups or issues after figuring out the driver. That one was really weird. I don't fully understand what was going on there, but after pulling that out of the equation, everything else came up and started working. So yeah, I think with that, I'll cut it off here, and see you guys in the next one.